Alright guys. So most people will tell you that you don't need anything but your phone to start creating. And usually that is exactly what I tell most people that ask me as well. But since no one ever listens to that advice, everyone just goes out and starts buying stuff anyway. Let's actually go through my top 10 things that you actually need as a filmmaker. Now I'm not gonna do the number one thing as a camera. I'm assuming you've already got a camera, but if you are looking for recommendations, then I would highly recommend the Canon M6 Mark II. I did a review on it back like nearly a year ago now, and it's a freaking weapon. The image that's coming out of it is absolutely amazing, and it's a really small and compact design as well. But if that's also out of your price range, then you can look at something like the Canon M50, which you can pick up for around like $550, $560 US dollars, or if you get it second hand, then you can probably get cheaper than that, and that thing's absolutely amazing. But with all that camera stuff out of the way, let's get into the 10 things you actually need as a filmmaker. And number one has to be a good tripod. Now, typically when you buy a tripod, it's not really something that you want to cheap out on, considering that you spent all this money on your expensive camera and now you're trying to hold it up with something. You don't want to put like a $20, $30 tripod underneath that. You want to spend a decent amount of money. When you cheap out on tripods, they're just super flimsy and like break really easy, and they just don't stand the test of time. Whereas if you actually spend the money, you can spend anywhere from like 150 to 200 US dollars on one of these. It'll actually stand out and it will stand the test of time. You'll have it for, I've had this for 6 years or something, and it's been still working fine. The main tripod I use is the Velbon Ultra 655, and it's actually a photography tripod, not a video tripod, but I very rarely use it to actually do like panning moves and stuff, so it doesn't really bother me. And I originally actually got it as a photography tripod for our trip to New Zealand in 2015. And I got it because it was super compact and pretty lightweight at the time, but also didn't blow the budget as well. Now, it's definitely not the lightest tripod on the market, especially today with all the carbon fiber ones coming out. But again, it suited my budget and it was nice and compact for what I needed it for. I also have the switch pod, which I use as like my vlogging setup. So it folds down to like this, so I can actually kind of like vlog like this. And then it also kind of whips out and ends up being a little tabletop tripod as well. And this is really good if you just have like a lightweight camera and you don't need much height or adjustability. You can just kind of like whip it down, adjust the ball head a little bit, and then you're pretty much ready to go. But the main video tripod that I used to use before I moved over to the Gold Coast was the Viltrox VX18M. It's about 250 US dollars, and it comes with a video head as well. They advertise it as a fluid head, but it's actually a friction head, which is all right. Sometimes it would grab a little bit when I was doing some pans, but for the price, it was actually pretty dope. And it had this leg design where you just had this like kind of like one knob that you would twist and the whole leg would just slip out, and then again you just twist it back up and it would lock it in place, and it meant that you could go from low to high really, really quickly, and it was just like really nice to use. And I'm pretty sure it went to a max height of like 1.82 meters. Like it was literally like, you could get it all the way up to here. It was crazy. But again, with your tripod, don't cheap out. Again, like 150 to 200 US dollars, at least spend that on a tripod, and it will last you for like 3, 4, 5 years if you treat it well. All right, number 2 is a decent microphone. For a budget microphone, the Boya BYM-M1 is actually a really good option, and I recently did a review on it, so I'll leave that linked up here if you want to check that out. What's really cool about this is it comes with everything you need, so you can use it on your computer or your DSLR or your phone, and it comes with a windsock. Like literally everything you need is in this package, and I think I bought it for like 70 Australian dollars, something like. It was not expensive at all. But of course, the purpose of a good mic is so you can actually be clearly heard. There's literally nothing worse than seeing a video and the audio is just like all scratchy and you can't hear anything, and it's just the worst thing ever. But before you actually jump into buying a mic, actually figure out what you want to use it for. So if it's going to be nice and close like a vlogging setup, then this is a perfect option. But if you're going to be at a distance, then this obviously isn't going to work that well. And if you are going to be at a distance, the Rode Wireless Go is a freaking weapon. This thing is such a good package, and the price, it is just so good. Like seriously, look how tiny this is. It is so, I think it weighs like, how much does it weigh? It weighs 31 grams. Like it's literally nothing. And the best part about it is because it's so light, you can actually throw it on your camera and put it on a gimbal, and then you got that wireless audio, and it's just so good. Like look at this little thing. So we're now using the Rode Wireless Go to capture the audio, but the cool thing is like, I don't have to stand there anymore. I can be back here, and I can literally leave the room. Like I'll just go outside for a little bit and you can still hear me because it's a wireless mic. How cool is that? Look how tiny it is. Like you can hide it anywhere. Or if you want to get super fancy, you can use both and you can connect it in via a cable, and then you have a wireless little, look at this. But it's like a proper mic, not just the one built in. Sick, hey? So cool. Now for day-to-day use, I'm typically using a shotgun mic like up here or one of these on my camera, because typically I am very, very close to the camera when I'm actually speaking. But when I'm shooting client stuff, that's when I generally use a wireless lapel mic, because it's easier to throw on the client and allow them to just kind of like run around and to do whatever they want, rather than having to like kind of like be right in their face with a microphone, especially like having one of these in your face. It's not very fun at all. But yeah, just figure out exactly what you're gonna use it for. If you need to be further away from the camera or need like some freedom to move, then a wireless lapel is obviously gonna be good. But if you wanna be close, then one of these would be pretty good as well. All right, number 3 is a decent backpack. Now this one is really tricky because you typically only know how good a backpack is after you've used it for like 3, 4, 5 weeks, and you've kind of put it through its paces. Because initially when you go into camera shops and you try on all these different bags, because they're brand new, they all feel pretty comfy, but it's when you've been wearing it for a long period of time, that's where the cracks start to show. When I'm actually on the daily, I use this Peak Designs Everyday Backpack, which my mate Paul Raimondo actually gave me, so shout out Paul. Thank you, bloody legend. And the design of this is actually really perfect because it has this kind of like top compartment where you can just throw some stuff in. It has this side zips on both sides so you can really easy access stuff. It has a zip up the top which you can put a laptop and a whole bunch of little stuff in there. And it's actually just, the ergonomics of it are actually really good. But I also wouldn't say it's the comfiest bag I've ever worn. Like when you're lugging this around for hours on end, your shoulders get so sore from the straps and your back as well. Like the padding's not as good, but because it's designed so well, I kind of just give up a bit of comfort to have a really good ergonomically designed bag. And again, I'm still on the lookout. Like I'm always looking for the right bag for me, and hopefully one day I'll find it and I'll be able to actually recommend it to you guys. But for like everyday use, this is actually a really good backpack. I have tried a butt ton of ones, and this is probably one of the best ones so far, mainly because of this side design. So you can just quickly like unzip it, flip it to the side, pull out the camera that you want or the drone or whatever, and you're ready to go. So my advice when choosing a camera bag is to figure out what you want to put in it. So do you need like a laptop? Do you need a drone? Do you need a camera? Figure out all that stuff first, and then that'll determine how much space you need in the bag. And then once you have that, you can actually go into a shop and kind of go, what kind of bags have you got that can fit this much stuff or has this much space? Try some on, and then actually go online and watch or read some reviews of people that are actually been using it, and they'll be able to tell you whether they're actually comfy or not over that long period of time. But as a general rule of thumb, if you spend a bit more on a camera bag, typically it's a lot more comfier and it will just kind of last a bit longer. The materials are always a lot better. Now number 4 is a pair of over-ear or in-ear headphones, but specifically they have to be wired. Now the reason that this is such an important part of a filmmaker's kit is for monitoring audio. Now most of the time you can get away with just looking at the audio levels on the camera itself, but if you're like specifically filming an interview or something and you really need the audio to be nice and crisp and you don't really want to keep repeating stuff, then I always monitor my audio throughout the whole interview to make sure the mics don't drop out and there's no interference. Especially if you are using wireless audio devices, because sometimes these things can run into some interference, and if you're not listening to it then you don't know, and then you get back into the editing suite and you listen to it and you're like, God damn it! Also, if you're shooting in windy environments, some mics can have a bit of a hard cut if they're a little bit too hot. So by monitoring it, you can actually tell that, and then you can adjust it to make sure it's not doing that. And you don't need anything fancy. Like I don't even know what these are. These are like Beats. These are probably like the worst headphones for using for monitoring stuff. But I think I like found these somewhere. So I just threw them in my camera bag, and they just always live in there. So I always know that if I want to monitor some audio, I can just quickly grab these and throw on my camera. I love rock and roll. Put another dime in the jukebox, baby. Now number 5 is a multi-tool, but I don't even know where I put mine. Where the frick is it? Oh good, found it. It was in my drone bag. But yeah, number 5. A multi-tool. Now I can honestly tell you how important this is because this was missing from my camera bag for the absolute longest time, and since getting one I've used it so much. I literally used to have a stack of 5-cent coins that I would throw in my camera bag and use them to do up the tripod plates on the bottom of my cameras. But now I just take this and it basically has everything that I need to do on a camera, and then it's also just like got a few extra things like pliers and a knife, and a few other things that I'll use as well. Now you can get like actual filmmaking specific ones. I know Small Rig makes one and it has like the most commonly used tools all in that single one. But like a standard multi-tool works fine. I think I got this from like Super Cheap Auto. It's just good to have in your bag in case you need to do up things or chop something or tighten something or undo something. Definitely something to keep in your camera bag. All right, number 6 is super boring, but spare batteries. Now you would not believe the amount of times that I've talked to people or seen people that have got camera gear and they've only literally got one battery. The battery that the camera came with. It's just not enough. At like a bare minimum for every single piece of equipment you use that it requires batteries, at least have 2. Absolute bare minimum. But I always recommend having at least 3 for every single device that you own. Right, so imagine this. You've set your alarm for 5 a.m. You've got up nice and early. You've quickly run, thrown your camera in your camera bag. You go down to the beach to catch sunrise. And I know we have all done this. Turn your camera on and you get that low battery warning and you're like, ah! And this is where having a second battery comes in handy, because at least, hopefully the second battery is charged and you can just throw this one in and you are ready to go. The other benefit of having a second battery is that while you're shooting on one, the other one can also be charging. So as long as you're not shooting too quick and you're allowing the other battery to charge, then you just keep cycling through them and you should really never run out of power. Now, the reason that I say to get 3 batteries is because like we're all human. We all forget to charge batteries. So if you have 3 and you forget to charge one, then you at least have those 2. And maybe one of those you might have been shooting on, so that one might be half done. Like if you only have 1 or 2 batteries, there's just not as much backup than having 3. So please, next time you buy a camera, don't just buy that one battery, make sure you buy a couple of extras as well. Right, now number 7 is memory cards and also a place to store your memory cards. Now, without a doubt, memory cards would have to be that one item, that one product that filmmakers don't know enough about, and people just kind of like go out and just buy whatever and just hope that it kind of works. And like, I can understand why. There's so many freaking numbers on these things now, like they just keep adding more and more. So it's just more and more confusing if you don't know what they're talking about. But doing a bit of research and understanding what kind of like the read and write speeds of a card are and seeing which one pair nicely with your camera will make sure that you're not overspending on stuff that you don't really need to spend the money on, but also getting a card that is decent enough to work with your camera. Now, SanDisk was originally my go-to card manufacturer for the first like 10 to 12 years of my filmmaking journey. And the reason is because they just had such a good brand and you always knew that you were getting a good card. And don't get me wrong, like none of that has actually changed. SanDisk still make absolutely amazing memory cards. The problem is that online in stores like eBay and Amazon, there are fakes that don't actually give you exactly what you want to buy. Most of the time you can guarantee that if you go to a local camera store and buy a memory card from there, that it's gonna be a genuine SanDisk or whatever brand you go for. It's more so when you're jumping online that you start having problems with fakes. So this 128 gigabyte SanDisk Extreme Pro that I bought on eBay, to test my theory, is rated at 170 megabytes per second read speed. Now, typically this card will retail for about $80 US, but I found it on eBay for $55 US. So at first glance, you'd be like, bargain, right? But maybe not. If we do a speed test on the card, you can see that the max read speed is only around 90 megabyte a second, not the advertised 170 megabyte per second. And the write speed is only around 65 megabyte per second. So realistically, I've probably actually bought a 128 gigabyte SanDisk Ultra, which you can buy for around $27 US. So this is why you need to be very careful when you're buying memory cards online and you see that they're actually a lot cheaper than say like your local retailer. The other thing about memory cards is to not put all your eggs in one basket. So this 1 terabyte micro SD in theory is really good, but in practice could be really, really bad. On the plus side, if you're doing like a week-long or a 2-week-long trip, you can literally just never format the card, just chuck everything on that, and it should be enough to kind of like keep you going throughout the whole trip. But the bad side of that is that literally everything is on that one SD card. So if that one SD card fails or gets corrupt or gets damaged, then you literally lose everything. Everything! In my opinion, I'd rather have a few more cards at a lower capacity so I can kind of like spread out my data. So again, if I lose one, that I don't lose everything. 64 gigabyte for me is like my kind of like sweet spot. And it's also a good kind of like price to gigabyte ratio as well. And the same rules of batteries apply here. Always have a backup. So don't just have one memory card, because Because again, if that gets damaged, then you can't use your camera, you can't do anything. Always have a second one handy and ready to go. Now to house all the SD cards, you're gonna need some sort of case, and I would highly recommend a soft pouch and not the hard cases that you can get online. I used to be a massive advocate for the hard cases because like they're waterproof and they're really, really solid, but I literally snapped 3 SD cards trying to pull them out, and since then I've always used a soft pouch. Whenever I'm putting an SD card into the pouch itself, I always make sure that if it is ready to format and ready to be used, that the label is facing out. And if I take it out of the camera and I need to store it away but it needs to be backed up, I actually flip it around so like the actual contacts are facing out, and then I know at a glance this card is ready to be backed up. So do not touch it, do not format it, because there's actually data on there that needs to be saved. Run out of space soon. Might need to use one of these other memory cards that I've got prepared here. Right, number 8 is a lens cloth. Again, super boring, but this could be the difference between a sharp image and a soft image. Now, typically when I'm buying lens cloths, I usually buy them in like 10 to 20 packs online. They're so cheap. You can pick them up for like $3 to $4 for like a 10 pack, I think. Sometimes you get 20 packs for that price, but yeah, such a good thing to have in a camera bag, and you should really have them in any bag that you have any sort of lens or glass that you need to keep clean. Now, when I first started shooting, I would literally keep my lens cloths for like a year or 2 years and just keep using them. But like, let's just think about this for a second. You're wiping your like hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of lenses with a cloth that is potentially quite dirty. Like, if there is a little bit of dirt in here and you're just rubbing it into your lens, it can't be good for it. So my general rule of thumb is that if you can see like a discoloration on the actual lens cloth itself, obviously it's black, you can't really see anything, but typically you can see like some sort of discoloration. If there is some of that, just throw it in the bin, get a new one. It's not worth it. It's not worth scratching up your potentially $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 lens when you can get a new one for like cents, like 20, 30 cents. Right, number 9 is one of these little air duster things. Now these are really good. I actually should have done this before number 8, because this is actually what you're supposed to do before you rub your lens. When you have dirt on your lens, you get your little air duster and you just kind of like, you dust off all the dust particles, all the dirt that's on the lens, and then you come along after and you come in with your lens cloth and you give it a clean to get rid of all the rest of it that's on the lens. Now you can also use it to clean the sensor on your camera. If you are gonna do this, please hold it down like this and then kind of like blow up. So then if you are dislodging any dirt inside your camera, it's actually gonna fall out, rather than doing this and it just pushes the dirt deeper inside your camera. And finally, the number 10 thing that I use every single day, and I think that every filmmaker needs to have in their bag, is some sort of power bank. Now, I can't use this one for my actual main camera specifically, but there is literally nothing worse than me like going out to see a waterfall and going for this massive trek to get down there, and then like my GoPro's died or my phone's dying or something and I need to quickly charge it, and you don't have one of these. Because if you do, you can just quickly whip this out, plug it in, chuck a bit of charge in there, and potentially get a shot that you could have missed without having a power bank in your bag. So having a decent sized power bank will definitely keep you out of trouble, but also make sure that you have the actual cables to charge the stuff with the power bank itself. I've seen now you can get like these multi-universal cable things where it's just like one USB and it has like 3 or 4 cables that come out. Probably recommend one of those so you can just have one cable in your bag and you can potentially recharge like your phone, your camera, like a few other things. That'd be the way to go. If you have found this video helpful, then consider liking and subscribing and join in on the community that we're building here on YouTube. If you did want to check out any of the products that I have mentioned in this video, then I'll leave some links down below so you can go check it out down there. And as always, guys, stay creative and just be you. See ya.